The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Remember, this is part 2 of our interview with Fran Andrewlevich. If you hadn't listened to part 1, go ahead and pause. I'm happy that you're here, but go listen to episode 129 of the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. 129 will give you the first part, and today is the second part of our interview with Mr. Palm Beach County Beer himself, Fran Andrewlevich, the man behind Tequesta Brewing, Twisted Trunk Brewing, and Steam Horse Brewing. He's also the person who creates the Jupiter Craft Beer Festival, which we could have gone to, and I couldn't, and it kills me. There's all sorts of great stuff that he is involved in. If it's a major event, if it's something big, you will bet that Fran Andrewlevich is going to be there. But before you listen to him, make sure that you're following us on socials at Florida Beer Blog on Instagram and Twitter, FL Beer Blog on Facebook, FloridaBeerBlog.com and FloridaBeerPodcast.com are on the internet. If you are interested in diving deeper into the wide, wonderful world of Florida podcasts, we are a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network. You can find them at FloridaPodcastNetwork.com. They're on socials at FL Pod Network, I do believe. I will have to check on that. Just search for Florida Podcast Network. Trust me, you'll find them. You'll hear all sorts of great episodes that are coming in the near future. But without further ado, let's get you back into our interview with Fran Andrewlevich, the founder of Tequesta Brewing, Twisted Trunk Brewing, and Steam Horse Brewing, recorded live right before Tequesta Brewing's 12th anniversary party kicked off. Enjoy. What would you use to describe Tequesta Brewing as an entity, as a style, as kind of a feeling? What can you generally expect to see when coming to Tequesta specifically?
Little bit of everything. But yeah, it's always, if you look at our tap list now, there's a rye pale ale, there's a sour on it, there's a double IPA, there's a brown ale, there's a fruited wheat, there's seltzer, yeah, you name it, but you're always going to get something different. And we listen to the people, and if we put something on, and we put great beers on before, and like we did a brown IPA down at Twisted, and I thought it was amazing beer, Leroy Brown, and didn't move at all. And just so, yeah. And down there, Twisted, I'll jump there. It's a little more lager oriented. Okay. So we probably got 4 lagers on right now. So kind of went that way with it. Like I said, with the decoction and the systems we have, we're very lager capable, and, we RO our water and all that. So we kind of did that, and more IPA up here, but again, a good splash of everything.
Gotcha. And is a lot of that, even though it's very, very close geographically, we're not that far from Twisted Trunk. Does the clientele differ greatly between the two locations?
Stay around for a couple hours. Yeah. It's fun. Well, what's funny is, so next Sunday, and again, there's guys that go between. Now, the guys down there are a little bit younger, and the older gentlemen, and ladies that come in here, there's 20 of them that are here 4 days a week, and they're as regular as it gets, and they're as local as it gets, and they're like half owners in this place because they care about that much. They're the ones that did this other side here we were talking of. And so up here, it's a little bit older. They're a little more consistent. They're a little more local. And down there, it's more, they don't drink as fast. Okay. And so getting to that, a lot of fun things happen. So I'm between, all 3 places. So for me, so we did a miniature golf putt off. 9 of their guys at Twisted, 9 of the guys here, and girls, and 2 of the bartenders. We had the best time. A lot of shit talking, if you will, excuse me. And so they lost, and now they have to grill out for them at Twisted next Sunday, and they have to serve them, and it's going to be, but there was more talking than I could tell. We had such a good time, but it united the whole world there.
That's amazing. And that's the other interesting thing is there's no shying away from the fact that all three locations, and we'll talk about Steam Horse here in a few seconds, that all three locations are one family. They are one company. You know, the last time that I went to Twisted, there was their chancellor in the walk-in cooler. Like, I haven't looked here, but I would assume IPGA, which is Twisted sort of signature, is here. You're nodding yes. Is there ever any confusion? Is there anybody that just sort of assumes, oh, it's the same beer, just a different tap room?
No, because the taps are always different. The people are different. The buildings are different. No, it's like a perfect crossover. And again, our staff, some of our staff do a couple shifts at each one, and it makes it that way. And we're lucky, like our team, our staff, we just came back from our Christmas trip. So we have 25 people between the three, and 20 of us went. We went long time ago. We flew them down to Key West when we were 7 people. And we didn't tell them. And we got to the airport and said, because they thought we were going to just have a regular, and we ended up going out to Key West for the day. And there was, pandemic years and all that, just an expensive trip, but they're worth it. And they get along. If you didn't know better, you think all 25 worked at the same building.
Interesting. So we're at Twisted, and with that signature beer, that is obviously an IPA. Was that intentional, or did that just sort of come about mostly out of
the
interest from the clients?
Go to the time again. IPAs were what they, were there. That was pre-hazy, or pre-hazy down here. And it just worked, 62 IBUs. It's, El Dorado had been out for a couple of years, loved that hop, and kind of featured it. And and it's, the name fit, PGA Boulevard. So IPGA, which people still don't get. They call it LPGA, and some people just don't get it. And they go IPGA, and they go, oh yeah. So I'd say time more than anything.
That's funny. And then, of course, the time came to open up a third location, and you crept a little bit farther south. But this one is very, very close to downtown West Palm. Was that the location very intentional? Because this is definitely more of a, as we look at Tequesta Brewing, it's definitely more of a suburban sort of location. Even Twisted Trunk, I would say, is a little bit kind of in the mixed use. It's still close to suburban, but there's still kind of those outlier locations, whereas Steam Horse is very downtown.
Industrial. Yeah. So it's probably 5 minutes from downtown, and it's very industrial. It's a warehouse district. And I saw it we're there 5 years now. So, or coming up 5 years in August, but I saw it 8 years ago, and it was weeds and old warehouse buildings. And this guy had this vision of doing this thing, and they're going to build condos, and they built one. So yeah, it's just the building from 1928. These are, both in strip malls and very residential. I think when you say suburban, very residential. Yeah. So that was took a lot of thought, but the building is dead sexy, and the build out came out great. And it's, it's gonna be a long-term project. We're doing okay, but not, where we want to be. But pandemic slowed down building for the condos, slowed down. So we're, there's an auto body shop a block away. There's it's a destination more than it is anything.
Gotcha. Once more of that sort of condo, once more of that construction gets built, and the kinds of people that are living in those in that sort of area, is that really who you're trying to attract?
West Palm is talking about the three different pubs. West Palm is super young. You got a lot more hipster influence there, and just our staff's a little different down there in a good way. So it's. Yeah, they're a funky bunch in West Palm. But getting back to it, the reason we did open, I think you were asking a little bit ago, was the laws in West Palm had not relaxed enough to do breweries. Like, they didn't pass that law till 5-6 years ago, or it was a very gray area. And they finally committed to it. And then there was, at some point, there was 8 breweries in West Palm, and I think there's 5 now. So that's one of the reasons we went there as well.
Gotcha. And obviously with Steam Horse as a concept, with Steam Horse, they just opened up the door. It's freezing.
I know, I'm freezing.
With Steam Horse as sort of a entity, how would you describe that, especially as you compare it to Twisted Trunk and Tequesta?
The core beer there is our Steam Horse Lager. So that's 27 IBU, so hoppier than the Chancellor, less than the Palm Beach Pills. So that's kind of our core beer, and just kind of lagers we're kind of making a run there.
Palm Beach Pills being the IPGA?
No, it's another house beer we have at Twisted. It's
okay.
An actual Pilsner.
Gotcha.
A German Pils. So yeah, the concept's more industrial kind of. When we built it, we wanted to make it look like Grand Central Station at the turn of the century. The old buildings. There's some big iron back there, and if you go in there, it's a gorgeous build out, and railroad ties on the bottom of the bar, and just that kind of look to it. Just super, super industrial.
Interesting. Are there beers that will go gangbusters at Steam Horse that may not necessarily hit very well at Twisted and definitely won't hit at all in Tequesta?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say more. Steam Horse is a lot. They're more into hazies. They're more into, whereas here, because we started doing West Coast IPAs back then, hazies still go well here, but your West Coast, the double IPA we have for the anniversary, which is amazing. That's got, some bite to it for sure. It's got Galaxy and Nelson and Strata. Again, sours up here go well. They go better at Twisted. So it's,
I would expect that as we go farther south, the interest in sours would increase just because of its, I guess, closer proximity to beer snobs.
I never thought of it like that, but yeah, now that you say that, yeah.
Interesting. Are there any beers that you just find surprise you and just go gangbusters at all the locations? Any sort of styles, even if it's the different name, different recipe, just the same style?
Most things you put on nitro, people are just so intrigued by it for whatever reason. I'm trying to think what Espresso, Dave and I were just talking about Espresso Chancellor here in Tequesta, which is an absolute amazing beer, and it's local. It's not even espresso, it's coffee, but we get it from Oceana Coffee, which is 3 blocks away here.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's right there.
They've got 2. That's one, and the mothership is over probably 4 blocks from here.
Interesting.
Which is amazing. He's a good friend of ours, and he'll roast a special thing for us, or we'll go roast it with him, and it's pretty good, but people love it.
Yeah, I was going to say, since you've been just this for 12 years, I would assume that you've had a good relationship with a lot of suppliers and growers and people like that from around the county, around the, all 3, the counties that you touch and so on.
Yeah,
and so forth.
we have connect. I mean, Twisted, we do a couple honey beers every year, and we have this guy Palm Beach Creamed Honey, and they give us the honey. We actually did a can of a foeder aged peach wheat beer, and we used their creamed honey in it. It was absolutely amazing. There, like I said, Scotty with the coffee, it's, they'll do stuff for us that they don't. We did a black walnut stout one time, and I said to Scotty, like when I met Scotty, and they're huge now. They're doing, I think he told me 4 metric tons a month on a 25-pound roaster. So run that around for a minute. Yeah. Gosh. And they've got a new one coming, a big old one from Italy. And so they're expanding like insanely. But when I first met him, he was doing it 4 pounds on his gas barbecue grill. I'd met him and he said, "Hey, I like coffee." He was engineering yachts at the time, Australian guy. So I meet him, we go over, drink some beers, we roast. And so our friendship is great. He always blames me for getting in his business, but he's a super success. But we roasted walnuts on it. It was a cold night like tonight, and we roasted, I had 50 pounds. So we had to do it in probably 4 rounds of it. But unbeknownst to us, he was all about it. He goes, "Bring some beers over, we'll do it." It was night out. We were there till midnight. And the walnuts have so much oil, they gunked up his coffee roaster.
Interesting.
So the outsides were getting heated, but the insides weren't going. So it was I felt so bad. And the smell was amazing. It was a cold night again. Just think about burnt walnuts. And then we roasted coffee on the walnut grease, and it came out okay. But that kind of relationship where we can do things, it's really kind of endless. Trying to think anymore. If I think of them, I'll come back to it. But we have so many great relationships on doing different. Tim from Culinary Cafe, now Parched Pig, we used to do a Casey, who was at Copper Point or Coppertail. Matt Cox will love that. But at Coppertail, he isn't anymore, but he's a great guy, really good friend. And we used to do a stone crab stout. We always talked about it when he was coming down from Philly. Mm-hmm. And I said, let's do it. So his buddy, Captain Joe, stone crabber down there. So they flew down, and I said, save the water that they boil it in, bring that. And so they brought fresh stones. They flew. The owner had a little bit of money, and they flew here. We made a stone crab stout.
I think I remember that one.
It was great. We gave the stone crabs to everybody here. We probably did 40, 50 pounds. It was a great thing. So we did that. But so one of the variations we did was the smoked horseradish. So my thought is, what would you put, some horseradish, stone crab, sauce, mustard. So I had Tim, a really good friend, smoke some whole horseradish root, and then we aged the stout on that, and it was phenomenal. So again, just on the food end, we've got so many great friends in town.
That's amazing. Obviously, Palm Beach County craft beer and craft beer in the state of Florida itself has really exploded. Palm Beach County has definitely really sort of gone up as well. Obviously, how do you kind of see the current and near future health for craft beer here?
It's starting to get saturated. I mean, it's almost 2 million people, so 0.8, but I don't know the exact number on it, but there's enough space. And you always have people from the north that come down in season. God, the next brewery's 6 miles away or 7 miles away where, there's up there, it's, a denser population and the proximity is that much closer. But I think it's good. West Palm, like I said, we saw a couple close. The bubble was, even pre-pandemic, the bubble was coming nationwide. Like you can't have, and craft, the interest in craft is definitely leveled out. Still good, not going anywhere. But I think there's too many breweries. So I think it's going to stay healthy. And like restaurants, the good ones will be fine. And, good locations help. But the good ones will stay and the other ones will, figure it out or not.
And I would assume that a lot of these people that have opened and have, had reasonable success have always come to you to sort of learn and ask questions and so on.
As I alluded earlier, as the old guy, yeah, it's no, and again, because I've always and enjoyed all of it. And just, made friends. Like we have the Jupiter Beer Fest coming up the 17th year. And that's more of an invite from just it's friends. And you have to have great beer and not be a jerk, and basically that's when you go to that festival, you get that. But they tell stories I don't remember. They're, and I go, oh, yeah, and they always go, well, we want to pay you. I go, no, you're not going to pay me. I said, but, make great beer. And when the next guy asks you, do the same thing.
Is there something that you will always tell somebody who comes in and says, hey, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that, I'm looking to open and make beer and so on? Is there some sort of set response that you always give?
There's no set thing because I can read people pretty well. And when they come in, you can tell if, number one, if they're serious. Number two, if they're good people. Number two, you can spot it really quick, and will they follow this through? And again, I've spent endless hours and days and weeks and months helping people, but there's no set things. Like, do you really want to do it? Because it's a lot of work. It costs a good amount of money to open something up. And again, you're not sitting around drinking beer like we talked about earlier. Like, it's straight work.
What's the common error that you usually see when people come in? Because for me, from what I've seen, so many people will come in and, they've homebrewed. It's like, yeah, you brewed in your garage for 5 years. That's great. Do you know how to deal with tax laws?
Yeah, well, no, that, and the ones that are smart they'll say, just, can you please help me for a couple months, whatever. And if they don't, I'll always offer it. I go, hey, listen, I'll come down and brew with you. And the guy at Sailfish, great example up in Fort Pierce, super guys. And they went from a 3-barrel to a 20-barrel. And now they're doing 9,000 barrels. They're doing gangbusters up there. But Nick and Dave are really good friends of mine. And Nick was going on, yeah, we're going to fire the system up. And they got a DM me. So they bought a system who I bought it through and through my guy. And he goes, yeah, we're going to fire it up. I go, what do you mean you're going to fire it up? I said, are any of those guys, they've all worked on the 3-barrel. I go, do me a favor. Send your guys down for the next 3-4 weeks, and I'm going to come up and brew with you before we even do that. And he did, and it was funny. Like, they came down and they were like, what? Yeah, total. Yeah. The equipment is, when I went from a 7-barrel to a 25-barrel with mash mixers and things like that I'd never seen when I went to Key West, go class. So I'm at Irish Times. It's 7-barrel. As bare bones get, and no digital anything. It was all like dial thermometer things. I go down to Key West and they had a grant. They had digital things. And I'm looking at it. I call my guy from the payphone by the bathroom who I was brewing with. I go, there's this round thing. I couldn't take a picture on my cell and send it to him. I go, there's this round thing hooked up to the lauter ton. And what is it? And scratching my head and all the, yeah. And I think another mistake people make, or they'll go, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. No, like just, like anything you're going to open up, like, no, you're not going to sell 10,000 barrels first year. No, you're not going to. If you do, and then you see them, you don't say anything. Go, hey guys, that's great. If you do, awesome. But 6 months later, you come see them like, geez, you were right. Like we're going to, yeah. And again, you find your place.
Interesting. You had mentioned the Jupiter Craft Beer Fest, and that is widely regarded as one of the best craft beer festivals in the country from what I've read and seen. Have not been able to go just yet. I'm doing some knocking on wood as well. A beer festival is a beer festival. There's so many out there. It's almost inundated with beer festivals. What makes Jupiter's different from the rest? And is that intentional to try to make it different from the rest?
like I said earlier, all the brewers are personal friends and make great beer. So you're going to go there and the brewers are going to be there. The owner's going to be there. So when you go behind that booth, you're going to have a conversation about, hey, the beer from Copper Point. Hey, Matt. No, there's Matt. Yeah. And you can get a straight answer. And that's the rule. If you're Irish, use a term called a langer. And it just means, look it up. And so just go, hey, if you're a langer, you're like, I just don't invite you back. And it's not like some crazy, but also the volunteers that come down. So we have probably 50 people that come down from Canada. We've had from Ecuador come down. And they volunteer, but they're all good people. Again, especially on that, no langers and the volunteers. So everybody you come in, my whole goal was when you come in, because I've been to a million beer festivals and sometimes as a brewer didn't get treated well. And they're like, okay, help yourself. Go get your ice. Okay, sorry, I'll never see you guys next year. But the guests can see that. So my goal is you come in for 4 hours, you pay your money, you forget about the world for 4 hours. And that's what we do. And if you meet good people along the way and they're doing all the things and the brewers are happy, it's just sheer bliss, So that's the key. And then the food and beer pairing, which is on Friday, which is 500 people, sells out in 10 minutes. It's 15 brewers. It's on the baseball field at Roger Dean, 6 to 9 at night. And it's, there'll be a grill in the dugout. There'll be stuff on the warning tree. You're on the field, just you guys, 500. Awesome. And it's one beer, one food pairing. And you just get this. I'm getting these high-end whiskey glasses that are logoed this year. You walk in and you go do your thing and but you're going to meet brewers and brewers' wives and husbands. You're going to meet owners. You're going to meet people that write beer bloggers. You're going to meet all kind of great. So we'd love to have you down for that. But I've seen enough bad ones that I'm like, I'm not doing this. And we donate the money in autism. So it's not like I remember a couple of years ago going to, Palm Beach Summer Beer Fest, which will probably never be around again since Brown created that. And it was a different crowd. And I was going to say with something like Jupiter Craft Beer Fest, do you attract a different kind of this area? You haven't spent a ton of time. Jupiter and Gardens, I've lived here since 1990. It is a really neat, the regular guy you meet on the street is a solid individual. And I don't know, there's just something about this area. So I think the area specific, it's great. And again, the level of people that we bring to it and the venue's gorgeous. But I think this area is just really cool. There's nice people here.
That's kind of awesome. Where do you see the Tequesta Steam Horse Twisted Trunk family being in a couple of years? Is brewery number 4 something that's being talked about on the horizon?
Not at the moment. Again, we'll see what happens here, with looming recession, with, the pandemic really kind of stopped us in our tracks. We had some weird thoughts of doing something, a bunch of things, but that kind of stopped. And hey, cinch up the belt. And, even like with Twisted, with, that much, we do twice the volume there. It's twice the size brewery that, we do so much more package now, which at the time our tap rooms would carry it. And that was the whole thing. But since the pandemic, I think 10-15% of the people just don't go out as much. They loved it when the pandemic happened. Like, I get to stay home, don't have to talk to anybody. And that's fine, but I think so now we just got our first truckload of cans in. We just started doing bottles again, just doing small ones for a couple restaurants. And we're selling a couple 100 cases a month just of bottles, And so I don't see us at the moment. Let's get them right. Let's get the businesses better and make better beer if possible. And that just do better things here.
Awesome. I guess the last thing that I will ask is if you could go back and talk to the you that was at Johnson & Wales while you were studying your chef whites, what would that person have said when you told them this is what your life is going to be like?
Don't work in kitchens. This is crazy what you're thinking. And again, when you're young, everything's, kind of bounces off you a lot more. I would have told them, just do what you got to do because you're going to get to the brewery and you're going to have free beer for the rest of your life. So just do your time in kitchens, and there's a place at the end of the rainbow here that's going to be brewing.
Awesome. I will let you get to your 12th anniversary. Congratulations, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So that is a very, very small introduction to the wide, wonderful world of Fran Andrewlevich's brewing career. There are some other stories that he went into that I didn't record. I kind of wish I had. Personally, I think he should just sit down, dictate a book, send it off to a publisher, and get that published, because I think a lot of people would be excited to read that. Trust me, it'll be really, really interesting. Next week, we are going to do another interview about a brewery while that brewery is trying to have an event, and I clearly don't schedule my time very well. This one's kind of an interesting one. It is a little surprising for who they are and where they are, but I'm going to leave it at that, and we will get you next week. The best way for you to find out when that episode gets released is to subscribe to us on the podcasting app of your choice. You'll get those notifications when we release next Wednesday. You can also leave us a nice 5-star review, so that way everybody who's searching for us kind of gets to see how awesome we are and how awesome you think we are. Make sure to tell your friends and your buds and everything. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer Steve Pekala, executive producer and Grand High Poobah of the Florida Podcast Network is Jemmy Legagneur. This is Dave, your host and author. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week, and drink Florida Craft.